Hey guys, what's up? It's James, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something a little different, a little darker, if you will. We're taking a trip, not for the scenic views, though Arkansas has plenty of those, but to explore a side of the state that doesn't always make it into the travel brochures. So, grab your favorite snack, get comfy, because you're going to want to settle in for this one. Join me as I dive deep, and I mean, into the dark side of Arkansas. We're going to try and shed some light on, and maybe even try to piece together 10 true crime cases and unsolved mysteries that have, frankly, stumped everyone involved for years, sometimes decades. Arkansas, it's called the natural state for a reason. It's got this incredible history, these absolutely breathtaking landscapes that can just make your jaw drop. But like any place with a long and winding past, it also holds a darker side, one that's often overlooked, whispered about in hushed tones or buried under layers of time. From the rugged ancient Ozark Mountains, with all their hidden hollows and dense forests, to the wide open, sometimes hauntingly desolate Delta Plains, there's this undeniable, almost palpable sense of mystery that just kind of hangs in the air, shrouding this place. It's the kind of feeling that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up, even on a sunny day. And trust me, the natural state has more than its fair share of chilling stories, the kind that burrow into your brain and don't let go. We're talking about tales that will leave you questioning what's really going on behind closed doors, or out there in the quiet, seemingly peaceful countryside. These are the stories that keep investigators up at night, the ones that families live with every single day, desperately searching for answers. So, if you're ready, let's peel back the curtain and see what unsettling truths might be hiding in the heart of Arkansas. It's going to be a wild ride, and probably a little unsettling, so buckle up. Alright, kicking things off in Fayetteville, a vibrant college town, but the story we're looking at today is far from cheerful. We're talking about the disappearance of a young mother. Imagine this. She's just going about her day, running errands, the kind of mundane stuff we all do. Maybe she was picking up groceries, heading to the post office, who knows. The point is, it was supposed to be ordinary, but then, poof, she vanishes. Just completely gone, as if she stepped out for a moment and never stepped back. It's the kind of scenario that sends shivers down your spine because it feels so possible. Her car was reportedly found, but she wasn't in it. And then there's this detail that just elevates the whole thing to another level of baffling. A cryptic note was left behind. Now the contents of this note, from what little information is out there, are super vague and open to a million interpretations. Was it a goodbye? A cry for help? Or maybe something more sinister, a message not even meant for her family but for someone else entirely? The ambiguity is maddening. Did she write it under duress? Or was it a deliberate act, a carefully planned departure? These are the questions that haunt this case. What could this note possibly mean? Investigators, I'm sure, have pored over every word, every letter, every smudge on that piece of paper. They've probably consulted handwriting experts, psychologists, maybe even linguists trying to decipher its true intent. And why did she disappear without a trace, especially as a mother? That's the part that really gets me. Leaving her child or children behind, it just doesn't add up for most people unless something is seriously terribly wrong. Did she stumble upon something she shouldn't have? Or was she running someone or something? The theories, as you can imagine, are all over the place. Some might whisper that she decided to start a new life to escape a situation we don't know about. It sounds like something out of a movie, but stranger things have happened, right? Others, perhaps more realistically, fear the worst. That she met with foul play, that someone out there knows exactly what happened to her and is keeping a very dark secret. The silence surrounding her vanishing is deafening, and the lack of concrete leads must be an absolute torture for her loved ones who are still waiting, still hoping. Fayetteville is a busy place, but it seems like on that day no one saw anything, or if they did, they didn't realize its significance. How does someone just evaporate? Especially when they have every reason to come home. The note is the only tangible clue, a frustratingly enigmatic piece of a puzzle with too many missing pieces. What secrets does it hold? And will we ever truly know what happened to this young mother, whose absence has left a gaping hole in the lives of those who knew her? It's a question that hangs heavy over Fayetteville. Next up, we head to Little Rock, the state capital, for a case that is just heartbreaking and infuriating. We're talking about the murder of a Vietnam veteran. This is a man who served his country, faced unimaginable dangers overseas, only to come home and meet a violent end in a place he should have felt safe. It's a cruel irony that just stings, you know? He survived a war, but he couldn't survive whatever found him in his own city. The details of the crime itself are often brutal in these cases, painting a grim picture of his final moments. What makes this even more chilling is that the killer, or killers, are still out there, still walking free, living their lives while this veteran's life was brutally cut short. Imagine the fear and anger in the community, knowing that someone capable of such a heinous act is potentially still among them. Who could have done this? And perhaps the biggest question of all, why? Was it a robbery gone wrong, a crime of opportunity, or was it something more personal? A vendetta, a dispute that escalated to the ultimate tragic conclusion. The investigation, I'm sure, would have explored every possible angle. They would have looked into his past, his associates, any known conflicts. Veterans, sometimes, can carry a lot with them from their service. And while it's a stereotype, investigators have to consider if any of that played a role, however remote. But often the motive is much closer to home, or far more random and senseless. The lack of answers in a case like this is a heavy burden, not just for the police, but for the entire community that respected this man. Think about the ripple effect of such a crime. A life is taken, but so much more is lost. A father, a brother, a friend, a neighbor. The why is crucial, not just for justice, but for understanding, for closure. Without it, the wound can never truly begin to heal. Were there witnesses who were too scared to come forward? Was there a crucial piece of evidence missed or misinterpreted? These are the thoughts that likely keep detectives awake at night, replaying the case file in their minds over and over. The fact that the killer is still on the loose is a stark reminder that justice hasn't been served. For the family, every day without an arrest, without a conviction, must feel like an eternity. This wasn't just a statistic. This was a man with a story, a history, someone who deserved to live out his years in peace. Little Rock holds this secret, this unsolved crime, and the hope is that one day someone will break the silence or a new piece of evidence will emerge, finally bringing the truth to light and the perpetrator to justice. This next one is tough, guys. It really is. We're moving to a small town in Arkansas, the kind of place where everyone supposedly knows everyone, and tragedy strikes in the most devastating way imaginable, the mysterious death of a toddler. Just saying those words feels wrong. Children are supposed to be safe, protected, cherished. When a young life is extinguished under unclear circumstances, it sends shockwaves through the community, and honestly, through anyone who hears about it. The innocence lost is just profound. The theories in this case, as the brief mentions, range from a tragic accident to something far more sinister, foul play, and that's where it gets incredibly murky and painful. An accident, while devastating, is one thing, but the thought that someone could have intentionally harmed a small child is almost too horrific to comprehend. Investigators in these situations face an immense amount of pressure, not just to find answers, but to handle the case with extreme sensitivity, especially when dealing with grieving family members who might also be under scrutiny. What really happened to this innocent child? Small towns often have a way of keeping secrets, or, conversely, spreading rumors like wildfire. Was there something going on behind closed doors that no one knew about, or that people chose to ignore? Were there signs missed, cries for help unheard? The investigation would have meticulously examined the home environment, interviewed parents, caregivers, anyone who had access to the child. Every detail, no matter how small, would be scrutinized for clues. The line between a terrible accident and a deliberate act can sometimes be terrifyingly thin. The community would have been reeling. In a small town, an event like this isn't just news. It's a personal blow. People would be looking for answers, for reassurance that their own children are safe. The what-ifs are endless and agonizing. What if someone had checked in sooner? What if a different decision had been made that day? These are the questions that plague not only the family, but also the first responders and investigators who had to witness the scene. The emotional toll is immeasurable. Ultimately, the truth remains elusive, hidden behind a wall of conflicting possibilities or a lack of concrete evidence. Was it a devastating oversight, a freak occurrence that no one could have predicted? Or does a darker truth lie buried, a secret held by someone who knows more than they're letting on? For the memory of that child and for the peace of mind of a community, answers are desperately needed. But in some small towns, secrets can be kept for a very long time, and the mystery of what happened to this toddler continues to cast a long, dark shadow. Our journey now takes us to Fort Smith, a city with a rich frontier history, but we're looking at a modern tragedy, the unsolved murder of a college student. This is the kind of case that terrifies parents everywhere. You send your kid off to college, expecting them to be safe, to be learning, to be starting their adult life, and then the unthinkable happens. A young life full of promise and potential just brutally extinguished. It's a nightmare scenario, and for one family and one community, it became a horrific reality. What's particularly frustrating and also a glimmer of hope in this case is the presence of DNA evidence. They have the killer's genetic fingerprint. That's huge, right? In many unsolved cases, you're just wishing for something so concrete. But here's the kicker: no match. The DNA profile has been run through the databases, CODIS, all of it, and it hasn't hit on anyone. This means the killer is likely not someone with a prior serious offense, or at least not one that required a DNA sample to be taken and registered, or they are simply not in the system, for whatever reason. So how can we find justice for this young life cut short when the most scientific piece of evidence leads to a dead end, for now at least? It's a waiting game in some respects, waiting for that DNA to someday, somehow, match up with someone. Maybe they'll be arrested for another crime years later, their DNA taken, and suddenly, this cold case will heat up. Or perhaps advancements in genetic genealogy, the kind that have been cracking other cold cases, could one day point investigators in the right direction, identifying a relative and narrowing down the suspect pool. The why in this student's murder is also a haunting question. Was it a random attack, someone targeted simply because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time? Or was there a connection, however tenuous, between the victim and their killer that investigators just haven't uncovered yet? College campuses, while generally safe, can have their own hidden dangers. Perhaps it was someone within the college community, or someone who preyed on students from the outside. The possibilities are numerous and equally disturbing. For the friends and family of this student, the pain is unimaginable, compounded by the frustration of knowing the killer's DNA is out there, yet they remain unidentified. They live with the hope that one day, technology or a tip will break the case open. Fort Smith remembers this student, and the community continues to seek answers. It's a stark reminder that even with scientific evidence, justice can be painfully slow, and sometimes it feels like it might never come. But you have to keep hoping, keep pushing. Okay, this next one sends a different kind of chill down your spine. We're heading into the vast, beautiful, and sometimes treacherous Ozark Mountains. This isn't about a murder in a city, but about the inexplicable disappearance of a group of friends. These weren't novices, from what the brief implies. They were an experienced hiking group. They knew the trails, they knew the precautions, they knew how to handle themselves in the wilderness. And yet, they vanished. Just gone. The most unsettling part? No signs of struggle or foul play were reportedly found. Their campsite, if one was discovered, might have looked like they just stepped away for a moment. No overturned gear, no indications of an animal attack, no evidence of a violent confrontation. It's as if the mountains themselves just swallowed them whole. When experienced people go missing in familiar territory, it raises so many red flags and so many bizarre questions. Did they get lost, separated, or did something else happen out there? How could an entire group, especially an experienced one, just vanish without a trace? Theories would range from the mundane to the truly out there. Did they encounter a sudden, extreme weather event that caught them off guard despite their experience? A flash flood, a rock slide? It's possible. Did one of them have a medical emergency and the others tried to get help, leading to a series of unfortunate events? That's also a scenario investigators would consider. The Ozarks are vast, and it's easy to get disoriented if something goes wrong, but the lack of any sign of struggle is what makes this so perplexing. If there was an accident, you might expect to find something, a piece of equipment, a distress signal, something. If they encountered someone with bad intentions, you'd think there would be some evidence of that. The silence from the Ozarks in this case is deafening. Were they perhaps trying a new uncharted route? Did they underestimate a particular section of the trail? Or, and this is where your mind can really wander, did they see something they weren't supposed to see? The search efforts would have been immense. Helicopters, ground teams, volunteers, combing through dense forests, treacherous ravines, and hidden caves that dot the Ozark landscape. For days, maybe weeks, they would have searched, hoping for any sign, any clue. For the families of these friends, the uncertainty is a special kind of torture. Not knowing if their loved ones are alive or dead, if they suffered, or if they simply aren't here anymore. The Ozark Mountains hold many secrets, and the fate of this group of friends seems to be one of them. We're now heading to Texarkana, a city that straddles two states, Arkansas and Texas, and a case that hits particularly hard: the murder of a police officer. When an officer is killed in the line of duty, it's an attack not just on an individual, but on the community they swore to protect, on the very fabric of law and order. These are the people who run towards danger when everyone else is running away. Their loss is felt deeply, not just by their department, but by the entire city. What adds another layer of frustration and anger to this particular tragedy is that there was a suspect, but no conviction. Imagine that. The police believe they know who did it, or at least have a very strong idea, but for some reason the case couldn't be successfully prosecuted. Was it a lack of irrefutable evidence? A key witness recanting their testimony? A legal technicality? Whatever the reason, it means that someone who may have murdered a police officer is or was walking free. That's a tough pill to swallow for everyone involved. What went wrong in the investigation or the subsequent legal process? This is the question that would haunt the detectives, the prosecutors, and the officer's family and colleagues. Did the pressure to solve the case quickly lead to any missteps? Was evidence mishandled? Or was the suspect just incredibly lucky or cunning enough to avoid leaving a solid trail? Sometimes, even with a strong suspect, the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt is a very high bar to clear, and rightfully so, but it can be agonizing when it means a likely perpetrator isn't held accountable. The slain officer's colleagues would have taken this case incredibly personally. It's one of their own. They would have poured countless hours into it, driven by a desire for justice for their fallen brother or sister in blue. To have a suspect in their sights and not be able to secure a conviction must have been a devastating blow to morale. It leaves a sense of unfinished business, a wrong that hasn't been righted. And for the community, it can erode trust if they feel the system failed. The streets of Texarkana hold the memory of this officer's sacrifice, and somewhere, perhaps, is a person who knows exactly what happened that day. The hope for justice, even after a failed prosecution with one suspect, never truly dies. New evidence can emerge, witnesses can find the courage to come forward years later. For the Texarkana Police Department and the family of the officer, this case is undoubtedly not closed in their hearts, even if it's cold in the files. The search for accountability continues. This next case is utterly devastating, involving the loss of an entire family. We're looking at a mysterious fire that killed a family of 4 parents and children, presumably, in their own home. A home is supposed to be a sanctuary, a place of safety and warmth. For it to become a scene of such unimaginable tragedy is beyond heartbreaking. The thought of a family perishing together in a fire is horrifying enough, but then you add the element of suspicion, questions of arson. Was this a tragic accident, a faulty wire, a forgotten candle, something that could happen to anyone despite precautions? Or was it something far more sinister, a deliberately set fire? Arson investigators have incredibly complex jobs. They sift through ashes and debris looking for telltale signs, accelerants, multiple points of origin, anything that indicates the fire wasn't accidental. The line between a tragic mishap and a calculated act of violence can be hidden in the smallest of details amongst the ruins. If it was arson, the questions multiply. Who would want to harm an entire family in such a horrific way? Was it a targeted attack, someone with a vendetta against one or more of the family members? Or was it something more random, though that seems less likely for such a devastating and specific outcome? Could it have been a fire set to cover up another crime? The possibilities are all chilling, and if it was arson, the perpetrator is not just a killer, but someone capable of a particularly cruel and terrifying form of violence. Imagine the scene for first responders, arriving at a house engulfed in flames, knowing there are people inside, the desperation to save them, and the crushing weight when it's too late. Then, the slow, painstaking process of investigation begins, trying to piece together what happened from the charred remains. Neighbors would be interviewed, friends, relatives, anyone who might have a clue about what was going on in that family's life, any troubles, any enemies. The emotional toll on the community would be immense, especially if children were among the victims. The lingering question, accident or intentional act, is what defines this case. If it was an accident, it's a terrible tragedy. If it was arson, it's a monstrous crime. Without definitive proof one way or the other, the family's surviving relatives, if any, and the community are left in a state of agonizing uncertainty. The ashes of that home hold a secret, and the hope is that investigators were able to, or one day will, uncover the truth of what happened on that fatal night, bringing closure or justice if it's due. We're now in Hot Springs, a city famous for its historic bathhouses and unfortunately also the scene of a baffling unsolved murder. This time, the victim was a business owner. These are often prominent people in their communities, known by many, interacting with a wide range of individuals daily through their work. Their murder can send ripples of fear and uncertainty through the local business community and beyond. Who would target them and why? The brief states that the motives are unclear, and that's often the hardest part of solving a crime. Was it a robbery gone terribly wrong? Business owners can be seen as targets because of access to cash or valuable goods. Or was it something more personal? A disgruntled employee, a business deal soured, a competitor holding a grudge, a secret private life that intersected with danger? Investigators would have to delve deep into both the victim's professional and personal life, looking for any crack, any lead. What could have led to such a brutal crime? If it wasn't a clear-cut robbery, then the possibilities become much more complex. Business owners often have intricate dealings, sometimes involving large sums of money or sensitive information. Could the victim have stumbled upon something illicit, or refused to participate in something shady? Or was it a crime of passion, completely unrelated to their business, with the perpetrator using the business context as a misdirection? The lack of a clear motive makes the suspect pool potentially vast. The impact on other local businesses and the community's sense of security would be significant. If a well-known business owner can be murdered with no clear reason, it makes everyone feel a little less safe. People start to wonder if they too could be a target. The police would be under pressure to solve the case, not just for justice's sake, but to restore that sense of safety. Every customer, every employee, every associate of the victim would likely have been interviewed, their alibis checked, their connections explored. Hot Springs is a place people go to relax and heal, but this unsolved murder leaves a dark stain. The business owner's life was taken, their endeavors cut short, and the why remains a frustrating, echoing question. Someone out there knows the truth. Someone knows why this person was killed, and until they are found or until new evidence surfaces, this case remains a painful open wound for the city, a reminder that even in places of beauty and history, darkness can find a way in. This one is every parent's absolute worst nightmare. We're talking about the disappearance of a child from a rural area. Rural areas, they seem so idyllic, so safe, right? Kids can play outside, there's less traffic, a sense of community. But they also present unique challenges when someone goes missing, especially a child. Vast open spaces, dense woods, farmland. A small child can disappear incredibly quickly, and the search area can be overwhelmingly large. The brief mentions ground searches and no leads. Imagine the desperation. Hundreds of volunteers, law enforcement, search and rescue teams all combing through fields, forests, checking every barn, every outbuilding, every creek bed. Dogs, helicopters, drones, every resource imaginable would be deployed. And yet nothing. No sign of the child, no clues as to what happened. Did they wander off and get lost, succumbing to the elements or an accident, or was it something more sinister, an abduction? How can a child disappear without a trace, especially in an area where they might have been playing just moments before? If it was an abduction, it would have to have been incredibly swift, incredibly opportunistic, or incredibly well planned. In a rural setting, a stranger's vehicle might stand out, but then again, people can be more trusting, or less vigilant, than in a bustling city. The questions are agonizing for the parents and the community. What were the child's last known movements? Who was in the area at the time? The torment for the family is unimaginable. Every passing hour, every passing day without news, the hope dwindles, but it never truly dies. They replay those final moments in their minds, wondering if they missed something, if they could have done something differently. The entire community would be on edge, holding their own children tighter, looking at familiar surroundings with a new sense of fear. The silence where a child's laughter used to be is a heavy, unbearable thing. This kind of disappearance leaves a permanent scar on a rural community. The fields and woods that once seemed welcoming can suddenly feel menacing. The thought that a child could simply vanish with no explanation, no resolution, is a haunting one. Was it a tragic accident where they remain hidden from searchers? Or is there someone out there who holds the key to this child's fate? The search for answers, even years later, continues, fueled by a love that never fades, and a hope that refuses to be extinguished. For our final case, we return to Little Rock, and this time, it's the murder of a musician. Musicians often pour their souls into their art. They connect with people on an emotional level. To have that voice, that talent, silenced by violence is a tragedy, not just for those who knew them, but for the wider community that might have enjoyed their music. Their creativity is lost forever. This particular case has theories swirling around it, primarily one of a robbery gone wrong. What really happened on that fateful night? Was it, as suspected, a simple street robbery that escalated tragically? The victim perhaps resisted, or the robber panicked, and a life was taken for what might have been a few dollars or a cell phone. These kinds of senseless, impulsive acts of violence are sadly all too common. Musicians, especially if they play late-night gigs, might be perceived as easy targets, carrying cash or expensive equipment, walking alone in less populated areas after a show. But is the robbery gone wrong theory the whole story, or is it just the most convenient explanation when other motives aren't immediately apparent? Investigators would still need to explore other avenues. Did the musician have any personal conflicts? Were there disputes related to their music career, their band, or their personal life that could have led to this? Sometimes the initial theory isn't the full picture, and a deeper dive is needed to uncover the truth. The life of a musician can sometimes intersect with a variety of people and situations. The loss would be keenly felt in the local music scene. Fellow musicians would mourn a colleague, a friend, perhaps a mentor. Venues where they played would feel the absence. Music has a way of bringing people together, and a violent death within that community sends shockwaves. There might be benefit concerts, tributes, all trying to make sense of the loss and keep the musician's memory alive. But underneath it all is the burning question of who did this, and why. Little Rock's music scene lost a voice, and a killer potentially got away with murder. If it was a robbery, the perpetrator might be a repeat offender, someone who has committed similar crimes before or since. The hope is always that they make a mistake, that a witness remembers a crucial detail, or that evidence eventually links them to the crime. Until then, the music community and the city remember the artists they lost, and the question of what truly transpired that night remains, waiting for an answer, waiting for justice. So there you have it, 10 unsettling, unsolved cases from right here in Arkansas. As we've journeyed through these stories, it's clear that, in summary, Arkansas, like any place, has its fair share of unsolved crimes and true mysteries that continue to baffle and haunt those left behind. From bustling cities to quiet rural landscapes, no corner is entirely immune to the darker aspects of human nature or the chilling unknown. These aren't just headlines. They are deep, painful wounds in the communities they touched. Each case we talked about today has its own unique, often bewildering elements, its own heartbreaking story of loss and unanswered questions. We've heard about vanishing mothers, unsolved murders, inexplicable disappearances, and tragedies that leave families and investigators grasping for any semblance of understanding. These aren't just stories to be consumed and forgotten. They're real people's lives that have been irrevocably affected, families torn apart, and communities left searching for peace and, crucially, for justice. The weight of the unknown is a heavy burden for everyone involved. The search for justice and closure continues tirelessly by law enforcement, by families, by advocates. And it's up to us, as people who care, as people who are intrigued and moved by these stories, to keep the conversation alive. Sometimes a renewed public interest can shake a new lead loose, or encourage someone who knows something to finally come forward. If you're as intrigued and honestly as troubled as I am by these cases, I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts, your theories, your insights in the comments below. Maybe you know of other cases in Arkansas that deserve attention. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to check out my other videos if you're interested, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe out there.